Pericol is a land of dark magics and darker inhabitants. I cannot guarantee that you will make it back, no matter how prepared you are. All I can guarantee is that if you do survive, you will not return the same. Nemes Yvette, former sergeant of His Royal Majesty's 3rd Hussars, and one of the few survivors of the Justos Kenyer expedition of 2978 AC. In the wake of the cataclysm, much of Efoqar was devastated by wars and climate disasters. One place that survived was the Pericol Mountains. A strange fungus had begun to develop in the valleys between the mountains. This would give the area its current name, the Festerwood. As a note outside the game, this is taken from the Griffin's Saddlebag, with some changes by me, but it is not my creation in any way. Slight alterations, again, have been taken by me. The fungus grows on the trees and accelerates the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The trees grow fast in the nutrient-rich soil to pierce the thick canopy before they die, falling back to earth and continuing the cycle. The branches block out most of the external light, but the fungus itself gives off a faint bioluminescence, meaning the forest is always in dim light. Numerous bugs in the area help break down the dead matter and help sustain the larger animal life in the area. But the fungus that is the base of this ecosystem has corrupted them all in some way, though when cooked there seems to be no ill effects. It was here that a young man, starving and alone, sought refuge from his pursuers as they were unwilling to enter the Festerwood. Taming the landscape through sheer force of will, according to the legends, how he actually survived is unknown. What is known is that as the mini ice age caused by the cataclysm retreated, the young man emerged, appearing in the prime of life, although it had been over 100 years, as Baron Heathcliff von Zabatroff, now something akin to a vampire but seemingly more resilient. He commanded an army of mutated creatures that began to bring the surrounding lands under his control. After taking control of nearby villages, most of his armies vanished back into the Festerwood. Slowly he built up the villages and began construction of Stia, that has served as the capital of Pericol ever since. Over the next several hundred years, Heathcliff slowly expanded his domains, all the while attracting strange creatures with stranger powers. Some of these beings are still in his service today. Eventually, he would retake his former home and wipe it off the map and from history. After taking the Bright Plain, as well as the northwest corner of the Gabona Plain, Heathcliff controlled the plateau formed by the Shadow Range. The oldest of the modern states of Efoqar, Pericol found stability and prosperity in a time where they were in short supply. This brought jealousy from others in the area who tried to take Pericol. Beyond the martial prowess of Pericol's hoplites, who have formed the core of Pericol's army for the last 2,000 years, is the simple fact that when an enemy soldier falls, they often rise again as a soldier in Pericol's army of undead. Pericol has also had the benefit of its longevity. Its collected knowledge and institutional memory cannot be overstated. However, Heathcliff has seemed determined to ensure that there is no stagnation, and has made sure that those who succeed are given the opportunity to advance, as well as moving those that fail out of their way. Kenku raiders from the Shadow Range eventually drew Pericol into a long on and off again struggle for the control of the mountains in an attempt to secure its borders. It took hundreds of years and the death of most of the Kenku, but the Shadow Range was eventually pacified and made Pericol nearly unapproachable except from the southeast. The mountains still host feral lycanthropes that plague Pericol and surrounding areas, particularly when they come out of winter hibernation. While the territories controlled by the ruling elite of Pericol can change, as well as those who rule them, currently it is divided into 8 territories. At the center is Stia, Surrounded by the Pinnacle Mountains and the Festerwood, it is ruled directly by Heathcliff since the dawn of the nation. The streets are lit by lamps filled with Festerwood removed from the larger mycelial network. The light changes from a soft yellow to a soft blue. Porta controls the main access to Pericol through the southeastern gap. It is ruled by Treju Halnay, a Death Knight and primary commander of Pericol's military. Lady Treju rules her domains with an iron fist and struggles for more influence, feeling that she should be the one to control all border crossings. Kakwinitho rules Veghi and is a death tyrant, commonly referred to as the Empty Eye. Veghi is not run from a provincial capital. Instead, the Empty Eye prefers to move around, generally teleporting from one town hall to another. To assist, where they are not, the Empty Eye sends undead copies of themselves. Those that sleep in proximity to the eye are sucked into their dreamscape that are normally fantastical interpretations, that was weird, of the real world where their desires become reality. Those who sleep in proximity to one of the extensions experience a similar dreamscape, but it is in black and white. If you walk too far away from the Empty Eye in the dreaming, the colors begin to run until you exist in a fractal swirl until you wake up. While getting too far from an extension will lead to an inky void. Veghi is a rather muted place, as most of the creativity exists at night in the dreams. Children, however, seem immune to these effects. Skari is ruled by a lich lord named Cughan. Here, denizens are provided more freedom than anywhere else in Pericol. The issue is that there are also very few protections from the other denizens who are enjoying their freedom. So long as the activities do not interfere with Cughan's standing, they are left to their own devices. Should any dare to threaten his standing, they are quickly crushed in a spectacular way. For his part, Cughan seems content to run his experiments and be left alone. Turla is home to the Marquise Taniel Monsola. She is never seen without her mask and wears wrappings under her clothes, but it is suspected that she was an elf before becoming a mummy. While the least populated of the domains, the court here is the most splendid due to its large amounts of mineral wealth. Beria is ruled by Sasha Ursuline, a vampire who was turned as a child. She will often use her appearance to gain advantage over those who are unfamiliar with her, but is considered to be a shrewd and ruthless player for those who are familiar with her. Barnabas rules Ruatara and is the antithesis of Sasha and Heathcliff, governed by instinct and desire. He is the hammer to their scalpel. Surya is the breadbasket of the region. While most of Pericol is made of good farmland, it is run by the undead, which tends to have a detrimental effect on agricultural productivity. Cyrilla, however, is run by Atheg, a pit fiend. Atheg has been trapped on Efoqar for millennia. Only he and possibly Heathcliff may know for how long he's actually been here. He was killed sometime during the Heroic Age, but due to the barrier was unable to return to the Nine Hells. Heathcliff eventually found his spirit and reconstituted him, binding him to his service. Atheg has managed to bring a few other fiends from the Hells over to Efoqar throughout the years that act as his underlings. Normally he operates out of the Crossroads Tavern, a place that only appears to those who have been there or those who have been invited. Guiding you to the location are gibbets with skeletal figures that point the way. Atheg is the highest-ranking fiend on Efoqar, and as a result, is the ultimate authority in fiendish matters. Pericol is one of the few nations to have a standing force of aerial combatants in its military. Gloomstalkers and their riders help patrol the mountains as well as conduct raids during normal operations. Bossum Brighteyes has established himself in the area and has worked to advance necromancy in more practical ways that are more helpful to the average person in society than the typical necromancer, and as a result you can see people with undead prosthetics like a skeletal arm to replace their own. Most travel is confined to the Belt Road and its main arteries, as they are kept safe. Those who wander off do so at their own peril. While Pericol is ruled well, if harshly, there are many beings that fall outside of its rule and should not be taken lightly. To travel the Belt Road, a passport is needed, one that is stamped at the various settlements along the way. Each stamp costs a silver. In Stia, Baria, and Ruatara, due to the prevalence of vampires, it is rare to find an inn. Instead, they tend to rent short-term rooms that are their own dwellings to avoid the chance of an inn's room would be considered common access and allow vampires to enter without permission of the occupants. The population of Pericol is well mixed, with humans making up the largest demographic, though less than a majority. Elves, gnomes, and halflings from the surrounding lands are also well represented. Pericol is home to the largest population of lycanthropes and shifters. Of course, there are numerous undead, and it is what Pericol is known for, but most are not sentient, but those that are tend to exist in positions of power. There are still some isolated bands of Kenku in the mountains, but by and large the few remaining have dispersed to other parts of Efoqar. Like all other nations on Efoqar, Pericol has its share of monstrous creatures, but unlike the other places, those with intelligence are not considered monstrous outliers and are more often taken as part of society as a whole. Despite the presence of fiends, there are not many tieflings in Pericol. The reason behind this remains unknown to this day.